Good evening and welcome to the Redwood Library in Athenæum in Newport, Rhode Island. My name is Benedict Lecca, your friendly librarian director, and we are pleased this evening to welcome Merrill Page, who we thank very much for joining us from New Mexico, Taos, New Mexico, no less. Tonight, Merrill, author of Earth Medicine, a Field Guide, Healing in Seasons and Cycles, will be discussing this new book as she explores rethinking modern medicine and making alternatives work as a way to demystify energy medicine. So I want to welcome everyone and our speaker tonight, Merrill Page. Thank you all so much.
Hi, thank you all for being here. Yep, I'm Merrill Page, and I'm here tonight to tell you about this book, Earth Medicine, a Field Guide. Just going to pull up my PowerPoint. So here it is. Is that working? I'm just going to assume we are on. Earth Medicine, a Field Guide, Healing in Seasons and Cycles. So I'm not sure if any of you had a chance to read it. It's my attempt to summarize 33 years of research and exploration in healing and alternatives into 240 pages of narrative, stories, recipes, meditations, and insights on how we really heal. So it's about alternative medicine, it's about healing, but I learned in writing it that it's also about becoming human. And after a few mistakes, I discovered that my true love really is looking across cultures at common threads in medicine and how we heal, how we're wounded and how we get better again. And I found that a foundational piece in health and wellness is really about becoming who we are and claiming our identities. So health becomes a journey, a process, as opposed to a destination. And this really shifts how we think about medicine and even alternatives. I went on to create a category I'm calling Earth Medicine, which is a unifying principle or an umbrella, if you will, where we bring together diverse alternatives across the spectrum of medicine onto a common platform or ground where, again, we can look for common threads of who we are and how we heal so that ultimately we can start to apply alternative medicine more effectively. So I hope tonight to demystify alternative medicine for you and show you some new ways for thinking about your own health and healing so that ultimately when you start to dip into the diverse choices in alternative medicine, you can use them effectively and really see results. We'll start with some themes in the book. So stories and narratives for healing. A really big piece around our health and wellness is our story. Our stories become our realities. So what we tell ourselves is true in our lives about what happens to us, how we organize and think about the episodes in our lives becomes our reality. It's a really key piece for organizing how we think. So the book tells you my own story of falling into illness and getting better as a way of showing you how to think about your own stories and inspire you to rethink them, reorganize them in a way that they become healing and therapeutic for you. The medicine wheel then is an ancient tool that comes to us from diverse cultures across the globe and across time frames as a way of restoring health both to an individual and to a community when it's lost. And shamans, which were the doctors in traditional indigenous tribes, use the medicine wheel as, again, a way of embodying medicine as a process. So I'll go more into depth around what the medicine wheel is and how we use it, but I also used it as an organizing tool in the book to organize the story. It starts in the winter, the time of illness. We move through spring and summer to summer and fall, and organize the stories into those categories for understanding our health and wellness. Meditation medicine is another big theme in the book, and I really want to transmit this possibility to you that meditation is actually medicine. There's plenty of research now to back up this idea that just with the power of directing your mind and your thoughts, you can impact your biology and your physiology. So you can help to reduce stress and all of the things that come through stress, poor digestion, poor sleep, anxiety, compromised immune system, nervous system disorders. All of these things can be impacted through meditation. So part 2 of the book actually shows you specific meditations and how to apply your mind to heal through everything from anxiety, emotional imbalance, depression, to your physiology down into your organs. Then archetypes. I remember being in a yoga class 20 years ago in Boulder and my teacher saying, just think of a female archetype who inspires you. And I did not know where to start. So in the past 20 years of studying diverse forms of alternative medicine, I became intimate with this idea that we all hold mythic archetypes in our own personal stories that impact how we think about ourselves and the incidents in our lives. Having healthy archetypes is like having healthy role models, people that we look to, gods, goddesses, ideas, figures from stories that we look to set up an expectation for how we should behave, and how we should think about tragedy, loss, and healing. In this book, I'm proposing the Latina mama as an archetype, and this is the mother who taught me to, or the Spanish-speaking woman who taught me to mother in Spanish. These women who are at once fierce and tender and soft. And since I grew up in some diverse cultures where they spoke Spanish, I was always inspired and quieted by the ferocity and the tenderness that these women brought to their mothering. So I have created the Latina mama archetype throughout this story and woven it throughout. The nervous system and immunity is another really big theme in this book. I come to you as a craniosacral therapist, which I'll tell you more about when we get into the glossary of terms, but it's really about understanding how the nervous system impacts our health on all levels, from our hormones and the endocrine system to the cardiac system and the heart, down through the immune system. And it's particularly important right now as we're all scared into hibernation around COVID and the virus, and not knowing how to navigate all of the changes going on in each of our communities. It's really important to understand how your nervous system steps down into your physical body and what some of the possibilities are for strengthening and reinforcing your nervous system. And finally, what is a book about health without food? There are so many contradictory ideas and controversy now around what to eat and what not to eat, what's healthy and what's not healthy. So I've woven the piece of food, another true love of mine, throughout the book, and trying to shift how you think about food and diet, not from what you eat, but more to how you're going to eat, and connecting you more to the seasonal rhythms and your own internal barometers, and understanding some of the tools that we use in Chinese medicine and Ayurveda around understanding hot and cold constitutions, and then the essence and the energetics of the foods as hot and cold. I'm just going to go ahead and read this to you so that I'm not talking over you while you're trying to read, but here's a little bit more about me and what I bring to this story and to this book. I'm Merrill Page, mother, mystic, maker, practitioner of mind-body medicine, and founder of the Earth Medicine Institute, Taos. Merrill brings to us an integrated understanding and heartfelt illumination of diverse alternatives in medicine. Her strong foundation in science and biology, Stanford degree in literature and Latin American studies, graduate thesis on craniosacral therapy for infertility, and a life lived across cultures, lends her a unique sensitivity to how we work, both physically and energetically, and the language with which to describe it. Her debut book, Earth Medicine, A Field Guide, at once poetic and concise, is a window into the mysteries of how we heal. Her words give flesh to the expanding awareness that we are indeed more than meets the eyes, and that there are, in fact, systems of medicine flourishing already to meet our needs across the spectrum of human health. Her work offers an invitation to unbridle your heart, unleash your energy, embrace your humility, and claim the life you're born to live. So that's what I'm inspiring to do with this book. The topic, name, title of the talk tonight is Rethinking Modern Medicine and Making Alternatives Work. So often I hear people say, oh, I tried acupuncture. I did it 5 times for my sore wrist and it didn't help. Or I tried, it's usually about acupuncture. I tried craniosacral therapy and I don't really know what they did. It was relaxing. So I feel like a really foundational piece is helping people understand that success in alternative medicine depends on us expanding our perception of who we really are, and also our perception of what we're looking for in our medicine or in the therapy that we're seeking out for support. So often we're looking for a physical result, and those results aren't even transmitted through until you've been through a process. So maybe you're looking for your ankle to stop hurting, and you notice that it doesn't stop hurting, but you're not really noticing maybe that you're sleeping better, or you're interacting more effectively with people, or that you're having an easier time digesting your meals. So it's really about looking for those key points of what alternative medicine is supporting. And I don't think it's new news to anyone, and I don't even think it's too hippie, esoteric, or metaphysical now to suggest that we are energy before we are matter. I think a lot of us talk about people having good vibes. In Spanish, we call it buena onda. You just have a good feeling with people. They even say that, I don't know, 60, 70% of what is transmitted between us when we're communicating is a feeling. It's not the words that are being expressed. So this idea of body energy is becoming more mainstream. We have more language for talking about the fact that we are energy before we are matter. And I've spent 20 years studying how energy actually steps down through different maps in these diverse systems of medicine, specifically into our bodies, and how you can treat physical ailments really directly, knowing how those energetic maps translate and map onto the body. So it can get really specific, and this is where we seek out practitioners. At the same time, we are elemental forms, we are matter. And in systems like Chinese medicine and Ayurveda, which comes from India, their entire system of medicine is based on the fact that our bodies are the manifestation of the natural elements. So earth is part of our body, as is water, as is fire, as is air. They actually step down through spiritual virtues, a level of aspiration, down through thoughts and emotions, into our physical bodies, into the organ systems, so we can know how to treat certain systems of mental imbalance or emotional balance through the organ system. It's really compelling to look across the spectrum of medicines and find the common ground and see that it's just a matter of lost information, and begin to reclaim that so that we can apply these tools that, again, are already thriving alongside our allopathic medicine. That's another way of saying Western medicine, and use them effectively. Everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want to create, and you cannot help but get that reality. This is Albert Einstein, folks. So for those of you who are really compelled by research and science, we're going to anchor it into that brilliant mind who came through to theories that we now apply in modern medicine and science from an energetic perspective. So in the last slide, we were talking about this relationship between energy and elements. It's the relationship between wave and particle. Quantum physics, which has really been gaining momentum in the field of science for at least 30 years and is widespread considered as quantifiable science, is this concept that atoms are both wave and particle. So something that's fixed is also fluid and malleable. If we start to apply this to our own bodies and to health, it means that something we believe is true about our physical body, that we believe that it's finite, it actually has the possibility and the power to shift and transmute in any moment. I find even an incredible tool that I like to offer my clients is softening your eyes. Because when you go from shifting to a fixed gaze and holding a hard thought in your mind to a soft gaze, you shift from this physical solid model of reality into a fluid model of potential and possibility. So it's really essential for us to start thinking about modern medicine, our health, and our bodies in terms of quantum physics. It's not a new idea. It's what Deepak Chopra has been popularizing in his books on Ayurveda, such as Perfect Health, since I was in college 25 years ago. But it needs to be reinforced and really embraced and practiced in our daily lives through basic tools like softening our eyes. This is an image of the medicine wheel that my 15-year-old Oliver did on his iPad for the book. And I put it here to show you health as a journey, health as a process of movement through these shields of the wheel, as opposed to, again, an end state. So usually we start in the south, the bottom of the wheel. Think of it as a compass. The south is the time of our youth. It's the summer of our lives. It's embodiment. It's when we come to know the world through our five senses and ourselves through our bodies. And it's the time of joy and pleasure, of gaining physical mass and just interacting through joyful or growing through joyful interaction. And then we move to the west, which again, that left point on the shield in the west is at the stage of adolescence in our lives. It's a time of turning from the physical orientation in the world to the emotional one, and actually turning away from a more social orientation to a more introspective and internal one, so that you can discover your true gifts and what you are bringing to your life. Again, health is a process of self-discovery and coming into who you are and moving through each stage and cycle of your lives to actually be able to maintain health through each cycle. So then we move to the north. The north is adulthood. It's about claiming responsibility for what you've created and who you are, bringing your true work and essence to the community. It's also known as the winter of our lives. And then finally descending down into the east, our elderhood, which is about finding union with all that is. And I wonder if that's a phrase that you guys relate to. It's about surrendering into the bigger picture of life and unifying your consciousness with witness consciousness. And these are stages that we pass through from youth to adolescence, through adulthood, down into elderhood on a macrocosmic level. And there are stages that we pass through seasonally. So again, the south is the summer. Then we move into the fall, the winter, and the spring of our lives. And we move through them even cyclically in micro phases. Again, they're just points of transition, and recognizing these transition points as key pieces to maintaining health and wellness. And also keeping the principle of physical health as connected to emotional and mental health. It's all so intimately intertwined. But this is a field guide, and its intention is to connect, illuminate, and inspire you to use the long list of alternatives already available and thriving. So while I like to bring in the science, I like to appeal to the mind and its need to know how things work. I also have the humanist quality and love words and poetry and really want to inspire you into your own story. I want to use words and examples that you connect to and relate to, and bring in the stories of my own journey with my children, so you can start to see how I apply alternatives in our life, and how you can start to apply them in yours for yourself and your extended family. The beginning of the book opens with a glossary of terms. So I call them guiding principles, and you can see this list is long. Many of these words you may know. Some of them might sound like Greek and you don't know what they are at all, which is why there's a glossary. And I really loved writing the glossary because these are words that I use throughout the book and I use in my everyday life. And people throw them around, and a lot of us don't even really know what they mean. So in just a few sentences, I've gone through a list of alternative medicine and phrases that you'll hear in energy medicine, and I've defined them in words that hopefully you can connect to and understand, or at least they will inspire questions so that you can ask them, see what you're not clear about, or go back and refer to. This glossary at the beginning of the book is sort of a guidepost for where the book goes. But again, it wants to anchor it a little into the science and just ground you into where you're going before I launch out into a story. So acupuncture, Ayurveda, anthroposophy, biodynamic, chakras, qi, Chinese medicine, craniosacral therapy, homeopathy, the medicine wheel, naturopathic medicine, plant medicine, shamanism, somatic therapy, yoga. These are just a few of the words that will be defined for you there, and a really great way to understand what people are talking about when they say it's in your chakras or your chi. And I find that a lot of people, even teaching about chakras, aren't really clear about it. It's a practice that we all need to apply over and over and over, and exercises that we do. And the more we do them, the more we get it, because it's actually like our anatomy and physiology. Somebody says, feel your foot, doesn't mean you can always feel your foot, but you still keep trying until you do. So the story is written in two parts. Part one is the story. And again, it's organized into 4 seasons, 4 shields. The shields are the stopping points in the medicine wheel where we come to rest. And it starts in the winter. So the winter of my life, illness, loss, grief, and how I can apply that principle to a story of my life and let it all fall apart and come undone, and then move through spring, summer, and autumn to reclaiming wholeness and health again. Again, the idea is to show you the true nature of illness and how we achieve full recovery. And the story is really vulnerable on purpose. It's about how to see into those poignant key points of your own process and your own story to what really matters, and give you the courage to bring that forth. And then also the vulnerability to suggest that letting yourself be seen is one of the key pieces to reclaiming your health. So all of us have to do it with care and with sensitivity to how we share our stories and with whom we share them. Nobody wants to be judged. Nobody wants to feel like, oh my God, this is all my fault, before they go through all the emotions and the grief of whatever it is they've lost. Again, I'm a writer, so I see things in metaphor, and I really understand that there's symbolism when loss or grief happens on the level of losing a loved one or losing a relationship. It can also step down into the physical. The process of healing is the same when we lose our health, if it's completely a physical scenario. So taking the metaphor of what's going on in illness and moving through the stages towards recovery, and showing you the importance of vulnerability and bringing that forward so that you can unlock and untie the pieces that are probably tied up into your story that are universal pieces. And in starting to see them as universal pieces, it lends you the possibility of finding compassion for yourself, which ultimately is the most important piece towards claiming that wholeness. All of the other incremental steps in feeling well and vibrant and thriving again are really tied into that little switch of turning on your own compassion for yourself. Having others witness us in our vulnerability is sometimes the hardest of all. I think it's really important just to let that sink in and let it become a piece in how you consider your process of healing. Part 2 of the book then moves into exercises, meditations, training the mind, and I'm coming to realize that getting quiet in your mind, meditations that just silence your thoughts, it's only part of it. There's so much more where you learn to specifically direct your thoughts in certain ways and move energetic patterns where you can actually heal through organ system imbalances and restore health when it's already manifested in your physical body, just through directing your mind. So part 2 of this book gives you a lot of those tools to do at home. Excuse me, someone's knocking on my door. Sorry about that. No one I was expecting. So tools for applying different levels of meditation, for understanding just basic warehouses of energy in your body, or other more specific meditations for helping resolve trauma in the body. And then part 2 also lists food combining for digestion. Again, it's there to satiate your mind, to speak directly to the pieces that need to know and want to be trained to restore health, reclaim your mental focus, and help drop it down into your body and into this mind-body piece of medicine that it's so essential for me to transmit and communicate to you about. What else did I want to say about part 2? Sorry about that interruption. There's charts on a long list of alternative milks and cosmology of feeding. How do we feed? How do we perceive nourishment? What is the neuroscience behind nourishment, and how is that wired into us from the beginning? So again, part 2 really seeks to give you tools to practice at home and to start to play with moving your own energy and understanding the different maps of energy, again, across cultures and across time frames, where they overlap and where they're consistent, and where you might start to entertain the possibility of where you begin and where you end, so that you can understand how energy steps down and organizes itself onto your physical body. And of course, no book on health and healing would be complete without food, if you ask me. The subtitle here is In Search of Truth, because I think a lot of us are having that experience now, that so much of what's coming to us around food and eating is controversial and confusing and complex and complicated. So how do we even sift through it all and discern what's true? Here, I'm trying to bring you back to how you think about food instead of what you're eating, and connect down into a seasonal and cyclical routine where you're moving again through the cycles and stages of life, of the year, of your own life, because what we need to eat also is changing depending upon our age, our physical activity, our health, the climate in which we're living or visiting. And my intention here is to make it juicy and insightful, to give you a little bit on the energetics of food, because I think that's what people are really interested in. How is this affecting me energetically? And to weave it in a way, again, that's simple and achievable in your life. I'm going to show you some of these pictures that didn't make it into the book, but we do have a number of recipes in the book, and we did take photographs. So dates and celery, sort of surprising one, combining that heavy, sweet, energetic of date with the salty, crisp celery, I just find to be such a beautifully balanced mid-morning snack. And these are some persimmons from the garden and some pickled onions, which are particularly good for you in the fall for cleansing your colon and lungs. Those in Chinese medicine, those are the organ systems. That's the organ system that's the most highlighted in the fall and the most vulnerable. And so if you can eat to support that organ system, you're supporting your digestion and have a lot better chance of staying well. Here we're moving into our winter dishes. This is an image of bone broth. It's so easy to make, and you can use it in rices and soups and stews. You can eat it plain. There's a recipe in the book for making a really good, hearty, nourishing bone broth. And again, you can apply this to winter annually, or the winter of your life when you're ill, or just restoring health and building the body in times of deficiency after giving birth. Also bone broth and seeds, pumpkin seeds also are a great source of good fats and really good roasted. I have a wonderful recipe in there that I got from Guatemala with roasted tomatoes. It's a pepita salsa, which is really good on scrambled eggs or tortillas. Fresh seasonal herbs again, and spices. Really, culinary spices and herbs have such a significant impact on our nutrition. and our internal chemistry. So learning to toss a little bit of cayenne pepper into your green salad dressing, or take the parsley and blend it up with a green apple, some olive oil and vinegar, a little bit of salt, and pour that over any sort of salad or pasta or potato or egg dish, just gives it a whole other level of flavor and excitement and immune boosting properties. Cinnamon, I love for its ability to moderate and balance blood sugar. And radicchio on the left is just one of the most beautiful plants that I've ever picked up. As I peel it apart, each leaf, I feel like I'm moving towards the heart. I guess they call the heart of an artichoke a heart, but wait till you try teasing apart the leaves on a radicchio, a head of radicchio. And then my favorite thing to eat, actually, yeah, that would pretty much sum it up. My favorite thing to eat is this cold green soup, which also has a recipe in the book. Here I'm highlighting gazpacho, another good way to use up your garden vegetables, and fold some garlic and onions into a really basic, simple, easy to digest, cooling late summer meal. I think most of us know that garlic is really great for the immune system and can help you fight colds and viruses and illnesses. And chronic infections. So it's a wonderful thing to have in your diet, especially if you can handle it raw. And onions, I've even been told that cutting open an onion and sticking it in a room if someone's there with a cold can help keep you well. So I'd like to know about your own research on that. We are coming to the end of this talk. Here are a couple of reviews and endorsements and a list of where you can find it. There's one in the Redwood Library. It's now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. You can find it in my shop, merrillpage.com, a field guide. You can just Google Merrill Page, or even on the earthmedicentaus.com.org as well. That's a bit of a typo, but I believe both will lead you to the same place. So I hope I haven't gone on and lost you all, and I hope that you'll have questions for me. I'm going to wrap it up and figure out how to shift from this PowerPoint on my full screen into seeing you guys. And if I need any coaching, oh, here's the stop sharing. Yeah. There's one more slide just of reviews that we might be able to keep in the background as we're asking questions. If not, it is on that field guide page, and many of them can be found on the back of the book. Let's see, exit, and then stop sharing. Here I am. Yeah.
That was just terrific, Merrill, and
Thank
terribly
you.
interesting and thought-provoking. We have a few questions here. Do you have in-person consults?
I do in-person consults if we're in the same area, and I do long-distance consults. So you can also find out about that, merrillpage.com, and reach me. Find my email there. Yeah. Thank you.
And does everyone know that to ask a question, you simply go down to the Say Something Nice, and you can find it, just type it in there. If we have any other questions. You covered such a wide variety of topics. I think maybe people don't know where to start.
That's fair. And it is something I'm sensitive to, and why I tell a story, because as a literature major, I found that you can pretty much find everything in a story. It's all right there. And yeah, so the book really tries to weave in all of these possibilities for how we apply the alternatives into our lives by showing you how to do it. And the story's about me as a mother of 4 and raising 4 boys, ages 5, 8, 12, and 15. The book was written 2 years ago, so subtract 2 years from all of that. But what it's like trying to find your way through a modern world as a mama with more traditional values and wanting a more holistic approach, and how to live that in the Bay Area where I spend most of my time. And so I'm hoping that the story delivers you the information in a way that's digestible and accessible. And again, there are reference points where you go to the beginning, you say, well, what's anthroposophy and what's biodynamic and what's craniosacral therapy? So you can go look at the definition. And then when you're reading along and I'm just like, oh yeah, so my eye's twitching and I went in to get some acupuncture. And of course, Chalita tells me that I'm thinking too much. Of course I'm thinking too much. No wonder my eye's twitching. And you can go back and see what acupuncture is. But the story is just the vehicle for weaving it all together and making it juicy and inspiring, and hopefully, I'm going to use it again, inspiring you to weave these alternatives into your own lives and to find the confidence and courage to use them with your children. Because I find too, even people that will dabble in alternatives for themselves and they go to yoga regularly and they might have tried acupuncture and all different kinds of diets, but they're not confident using alternative medicine with their children. And our children are the ones who need it the most because they respond so effectively to the subtle forms of medicine. I want to really plug homeopathic medicine, because with these little sugar balls that most kids love to take that come in these little vials and can treat everything from systemic illness and lethargy and depression, or like emotional withdrawal in one of your children, to something acute like a bee sting or a cold or a fever or vomiting, in these little vials called homeopathic medicine. So yeah, I just want to take this chance to say, please explore these possibilities for your children, because they're the ones who respond the most. And it helps keep their systems clean and sensitive and able to fight off the bigger diseases and problems in the long run.
Now we have some other questions here.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
from Liz. Would love to know any healing guides during menstruation.
I might have you email me on that one. This is one of my favorite topics because I find that finding harmony with the seasons and your own cycles really helps balance any concerns you have around your cycle and hormones. I do have some old books that I would refer you to, like I'm thinking Rosemary Gladstar, and I'm thinking of a book called Woman Heal Thyself that's on my shelf. I can't remember the author right now, but feel free to email me and I can give you a more thorough.
Can you provide the email address in the say something nice for her?
Is it the chat? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just write down where it says say something nice.
Oh, there it is.
And while you're doing that, the book can be purchased on Amazon and also at Barnes and Noble, Sharon, that you asked the question.
Yes.
Now, Kate wants to know, when did you decide you'd actually write and publish this book? It's so amazing.
Kate. Hi, Kate. Thank you for asking. Well, I think to any writer out there, if you write in a journal and find it as helpful as I do, after years and years of doing it, you finally realize you have something to say. I think it's because enough people finally said to me, I don't know how you do it, Merrill. And I thought, okay, well, I think I'm going to tell you how I do it. And noticing too that I would go on and on about alternative medicine to people that weren't really engaged. And I figured, well, I better start saying this to people who want to hear about it. So a couple of years ago, I started getting organized and putting a story together. And like I said a little earlier, I think everything comes through in a story. So part of the challenge of writing a piece is finding the story. And again, if we really tune into our own and get inspired to engage with it in different ways, we see that it's all there. So I don't know. I actually did start writing pieces of it about 10 years ago. I found them in my journal and it just finally came together.
We have lots more questions now from Janet. Can you talk a little more about the cranial sacral therapy?
Yeah, Janet, thank you. Craniosacral therapy. So, craniosacral therapy comes from the school of osteopathy, and that's grounded in medical science, anatomy, physiology. It's practiced by MDs, but I want to say it's still controversial, and there's still osteopaths that will say craniosacral therapy is quackery. But those of us who practice it and experience it think that it's totally life-changing and transformational. And it's we could call it a form of body work because you come into a craniosacral office, you get onto a massage table, you keep your clothes on, and the doctor or practitioner does gentle palpations at your skull, at your feet, or at your tailbone, your sacrum. The palpations are diagnosis to see if there are any blocks or torsions in your physical body or in your energetic body. And they're also the treatment. So it's a really relaxing treatment. The idea is that we are grounding and balancing the nervous system. And in doing that, we're rebalancing and realigning the musculoskeletal system because actually your muscles unwind and your bones start to shift. So people get off the table and they're generally pretty relaxed. If they had a hip ache or an ankle ache or a headache, it's usually dissipated and they feel better. But most people will get up off the table and they'll say, I don't really know what you did, but I feel better. Some people will fall asleep. So there's a little mystery and magic to it. There's also science and a real anatomy and physiology to it. And it's another form of mind-body medicine that's really growing in popularity and being practiced across the globe now for issues with pregnancy, postpartum. It's incredible for treating infants and throughout our entire lives, even to the process of dying and just letting go spiritually into your next phase of life. So there's a definition in the book, and often experiencing it's a really wonderful way to learn about it.
Great. Just before we get to some other questions, I do want to, someone just asked it, and it's important to know you can see this entire talk again by tuning into our YouTube channel, the Redwood YouTube channel. It will be posted by tomorrow morning on the site so you can watch it again because Sharon's interested in seeing it again. From Elise, tell us more about meditation techniques that can heal specific body pain and illnesses.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you for that question, Elise. So I come to meditation through yoga, which was clearing the mind, and finally landed in Qigong, which is based on 5-element theory, which is what informs acupuncture and Chinese medicine. And it's understanding how the natural elements step down into the body and how we can direct specific thoughts to specific organ systems. So I spent many years studying with some real master teachers in schools called medical Qigong, which teach you the specific exercises for healing your liver, for healing your gallbladder, for healing your stomach. And they're exercises that you do every single day. And with time, things realign and balance. So I can just give you, I guess, my background. It's hard to say a lot without getting into a specific meditation here on the screen, but they are in part 2 of the book. There's some specific exercises. And again, you might check out Medical Qigong as a resource for where to find more specific exercises for healing specific illnesses and diseases.
And we have something here from Leni. How do you interweave all the different models of healing? The Ayurvedic, acupuncture, yes, Western herbs with a client.
What a good question. I think that would take me back to the storytelling and being a really good listener. So if I'm working with you in person and you come into my office, I'll ask what's going on, but I'm one of those intuitive people too, who kind of just know what to do with your body. So we like to say in body work that your body doesn't lie. So I can get a lot of information about what's going on, and I just track the trail of the story as it's told through your body and let it unfold. And so it's advanced skilled body work, and where we come from in somatic therapy, and that's another way of saying body work, it's believing that our life stories are held in ourselves, and we can unlock and unwind old patterns through educated touch and techniques. So I like to work with people hands-on, and their whole story comes through that way. I'll work with nutrition, I'll work with herbs and plant medicine. And then other just therapeutic skilled listening is another way to tie in all of these different layers into an effective treatment for the client. One of the big pieces that comes forth in the book is the importance of relationship and health and healing, and how relationships can either restore, revitalize, ground, and send us on our thriving way, or actually debilitate us and limit us. And there's an incredible body of research that really has begun to expose the scientific biological implications of healthy relationships on our endocrine systems, on our immune systems, on our neurological systems. So sometimes it's the relationship between client and healer too that's restoring health, depending upon what's going on with the client. Is that a satisfying answer?
We haven't heard back yet. Well, it's been a fascinating time hearing from you tonight, Merrill. And everybody knows where they can reach you now if they'd like to follow, and where they can obtain the book. So we've been happy to have you here at the Redwood, and thank you ever so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. Sharon had one more question. Where am I found?
Sorry.
I'm in, it just came through. I'm in the Bay Area much of the year. I'm in New Mexico part of the year, and I'm in Rhode Island on occasion. So just be in touch.
Terrific. Thanks again.
Thank you. It was wonderful to be here. Really appreciate it. Good night,
Thanks.
everybody.
Good night, Merrill. So I'm hoping you're going to all join us again next week. We're taking a different next week, and we're going to be having a program with the poet David Mills. And David is going to be joining us and reading from his best-selling, groundbreaking poetry collection called Bone Yarn, which is the first ever book on poems about slavery in New York City. So that will be an interesting, compelling evening as well. So glad you joined us this evening. It was a pleasure to have Merrill. And if you're interested in next week or any of our lectures, they can always be found on our website. So thank you and good evening.